better information on that to you in another month. As far as everywhere else in the budget, there isn't a whole lot of changes from over the past couple months as to when we first presented our budget back in April. What we have included, and I did want to point, a $1.7 million deficit is typical, where we have been at in the past couple years, and have worked very hard in the administration, the board, to close that gap during the year. So I'm hoping we can do that again. Part of what has helped make up some of these losses in revenues over the past year because of the pandemic is the ESSER funding that is included in the 21-22 budget. There is roughly almost $1.6 million of ESSER funding put into the 21-22 budget. And that seems like a lot because it is one-time funding. But what I do...
It is a lot.
It is a lot, certainly is a lot. But what I do want to point out to the committee and to the entire board is that roughly $500,000 of that, 1.5 million, is covering one-time or is covering costs in our budget that are going to occur every single year. For instance, a teacher, we're covering about 4 full-time teachers out of that right now, to about $100,000 or $400,000, and we're covering about $90,000 worth of literacy interns that we get from IUP that will continue to be, or could continue to be, part of our budget over the next couple of years as that funding goes away. So to me, in my opinion, and it's my opinion, that's pretty good. That's not a whole lot of money that in the future right now we need to make up or replace with our local funding that we may have lost. So I feel the district's in a pretty good position with that it is only $500,000 of ESSER funding right now that we are using to help cover routine expenditures. The other $1 million right now in our budget for ESSERs is going to pay for the summer camp that we are running next year, which is almost $300,000. It is going to pay for technology that we are buying next year to upgrade a lot of things across the district. It is paying for the transfer of money back into the capital reserve to help pay for the turf over the next 2 years. So, this is one-time funding, and right now we're using the majority of it for one-time expenditures, which is what it actually should be used for, while we're using a small portion of it to help cover our budget deficit right now, in hopes that we kind of see some continued growth here in our normal local revenue.
Jared, I haven't seen such a strong general fund since I've been on the board, so that's pretty nice what you've been able to do. So we're going to be, it looks pretty good. And a question that I have about, I don't know if you made any other changes, but 2 questions. I thought you said at one point you thought we could go to a 650 surplus. I thought maybe I'm mistaken, and maybe I have the wrong, but you were projecting this surplus could go another 50,000. Are you still thinking that way?
Absolutely. I mean, just looking, there are still some unspent funds areas across the district. I mean, I will certainly probably in another month and a half, usually about the beginning of July, when all the salary and benefit information is finalized, all that kind of items, when we're pretty much done ordering anything for 2021, which we are pretty much now. We're just paying a lot of stuff off that we have ordered over the past month. That number, knock on wood, certainly will climb a little bit. As we did last year, we can wait till pretty much our audited numbers come in to make a decision on whether you, as a board, want to transfer a portion of that surplus. If there is, whatever size it is, later on in the year, you can make that decision as to whether you want to transfer some of that into the capital reserve. But my hope is that
I kind of want to get a feel for that tonight a little bit. Just a little bit, but I don't often think people should make decisions until they absolutely have to on situations like this, because it's fluid. But So you feel that we could go to 650?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Still kind of watching those numbers. I hope it even goes above that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, I do too. My second question is, I think you normally run projections on, I know you've got a number of teachers that are probably getting to be of retirement age. So at some point, as we move forward, we want to try to figure out with this 1.7 deficit where we might be in terms of how many retirements you might be projecting, as well as where the healthcare costs are going to go. So I'm just sort of, I don't see this 1.7 as a hard number at this point. I think that's still quite fluid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as far as retirements go, next year, 21, 22 is the last year of the teacher's contract, which historically at the end of a contract, there seems to be an increase in retirement. So I would project that we could get some significant amount of retirements next year. I don't have a number for that. Last time, I believe we were around 20 some under the last contract. We don't have that many people of retirement age this time. That was a big group who came in pretty much 35 years ago together. They all retired. We don't have any big groups like that anymore. I would say we could be close to 10, 15 at the end of this contract. And I did include in the budget an increase number. When teachers retire, when most school districts retire, we pay something out to them as far as sick days, those type of things. So we do have some money in this budget, in the next year's budget, to also account for those increases in retirement as well. So.
Okay. So any other major changes in the budget? Otherwise, I'd like to open it up for questions.
No other major changes from the last time we talked. I mean, we can certainly talk a little bit more in depth on the 28th as well, as we kind of get some more certain information on the assessment, our total assessed value for the district. And as I'd like to also update on the EIT number as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So let's just keep our fingers crossed that May turns out to be, it's historically been strong for us. So let's see what happens. As soon as you know something, let us know.
Yep. And just the one thing before I forget, we did 2 weeks ago get our final healthcare rate. So we are seeing an increase next year of 2.97%. So
really?
That is,
how does that historically look?
it's a little bit more than last year, but last year we saw an increase of, our increase was 0.28%, so not even 1%. The previous year we were right around 5%. So it's, pretty much right in the middle. When we do budget projections, even in the next couple of years here on this sheet, we always budget right around 6%, which our 10-year average is 4.97% increase. So, we're slightly even below the average. So
we're in the wrong business, I'll tell you. Okay, thank you. Tom, you had your hand up.
Yes. Jared, you've been carrying on committed fund balance 750 forever. Can you can you tell me what's been committed in that fund balance? What does that mean?
That the committed fund balance takes a board vote, and that was voted a couple years ago. As you can see, we've been carrying it for a while, and that was committed for increases in PSERS and healthcare. So at any point, the board could vote to uncommit that if they need it for expenditures.
So it was, the board moved to just earmark 750 for that event.
Yes.
But we haven't tapped into it.
No, in all reality, sir, it is. I just consider it part of your fund balance.
Okay. So it's not like it's we're committing some money to a specific item down the road here.
No.
Okay.
But I fear that Peach is going to be a bucking horse. I mean it, Jared. I mean, we all know what's happened, that they're questioning that whole system. So,
yep, absolutely.
I just hope that horse doesn't bite too. So Okay, Tom, are you sufficient happily with your answer? Terry, your hand was up.
Yep. Talking about that PSER stuff that was in the news, from the way I understand that, that's going to be potentially an additional cost to the employee. Is it potentially a cost to the school district also, or is it just the employee?
Certainly, sir, the employees who are affected by that, and it's not all employees. It's employees who became members of PSER since 2012. They will see an increase in their rate because PSERs did not reach their target investment return rate. So they will certainly see an increase. Will be a direct increase to the district? Not necessarily, but whenever PSERs doesn't reach their target investment rate, it certainly means that in the long run, the districts are going to have to contribute more because, when PSER sets the annual employer contribution rate, it takes into account investment earnings, it takes into account employee contributions. All those go in to set up what the new rate's going to be. So whenever PSERs isn't meeting their, target rate, it certainly in the long run, in my opinion, means we're going to pay a little bit more as a district.
Okay, thank you. And then just to finish up on Tom's thing, that 750,000 sounds to me like you've already accounted for the PSERs and the insurance in your budget. That's just like an emergency account, I guess.
It could be, yes, sir. So if the unassigned fund balance in there ever starts really dropping and you need to tap into that 750, it takes simply a board vote to uncommit it, and then it just rolls into your fund balance that you can use every year to balance the budget if you need to.
Okay, thank you.
Walter, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Julia, thanks. I just kind of want to comment on that. I was here when they actually made that commitment, and it goes directly to Terry's point. At that time, there was a whole lot of uncertainty as to where and when those PSERs increases were going to hit the district, and so they kind of wanted to just tuck a little bit of money aside so that if we did get hit by a nasty year for whatever reason, we would have the funds there to cover it and then not affect our operational budget. And then the other thing that did was it also allowed us to still increase the taxes at that point without having the fund balance kind of reach that no man's land where you couldn't increase the taxes because the fund balance was too
high. Okay. Any other questions for Jared? Okay. I don't see anybody's hand up. I feel as though when we close out May, and you have a pretty good idea of what's going on. So when do we meet next, Jared, for audit and finance? Not until until we vote on the budget, correct?
Yeah, there'll be an audit and finance committee meeting on June 28th at 5:30. And then that evening, there'll be a full board meeting where you will adopt your budget.
Yeah, so I think we need to, as soon as you've got those numbers to see how May's coming in, we want to see those.
Yep, I can send that information to the board.
Yeah.
Prior to that, even prior to that meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to see it so that we have a pretty good idea of what we're looking at. And as for this 750,000, I feel better knowing it's there and somewhat segregated. I know I see what you're saying, that it's part of the general fund, but I think it's unpredictable what could happen here because I don't know exactly what the fund is going to be forced to do in terms of its audit and how serious it actually is, but I don't think it's unserious. I'll say that. So we have to keep our eye on it. Okay.
I agree with you, ma'am. I think we leave it as is.
Yeah. Okay. Can we go to the next item on the agenda then, please?
Yes. The next item on the agenda is the capital reserve budget. And just wanted to do the initial presentation tonight. Certainly buildings and grounds can talk about it next month. On on theirs, on their agenda as well. And then we would be looking to approve the capital reserve budget on June 28th as well. Both an estimate and a proposed budget are linked to our agenda tonight. I can briefly cover these items as it may be something that the board wants to take a look at and study. And again, we will have further discussion of buildings and grounds next month, as well as the audit and finance next month as well. But Randy, do you want to click on the estimated capital reserve budget? And this one is just really, this is this year's budget that the board has already approved. It's just kind of going down through as far as where I think we will, the capital reserve will, what position will be here at the end of the year. We started the beginning of the year with 1.7, almost $1.8 million. And in large part, that was due to the transfer that the board approved from the 1920 budget into capital reserve, the $950,000 transfer. We transferred about $15,000 in rent from the Clark property that the district owns into capital reserve. And then we'll see right around about $4,800 in interest, which unfortunately is a big decrease to where we were last year at this time. But such is life right now as far as interest rates go. So as far as the entire money available in capital reserve for the year, we're talking about $1,781,000. So a pretty nice balance in there for the year. Now, as you can see, there's all the capital reserve budget, all the individual items there that the board approved last June on there. And then the planned projects are the ones, we have a full list. We have estimates for you. It doesn't mean that we plan on doing them all in one year because there just isn't enough money to do that. But we do like to keep them on here so that the board is informed and has some idea of what's coming up over the next couple of years. But the planned project column are the items that, as administration and as a buildings and grounds and as a board, we work on trying to complete throughout the year. And some of those we have already done, as you can see under current expenditures. Some of those items have already been worked on, such as curtains for stages. We've replaced some teacher desks at the beginning of the year. We plan on doing some more of that here at the end of the year. We've been working on some security improvements, some stage repairs as well. And then Mr. Trout and Mr. Cheney are also working on carpet replacement, which we typically do here in June. I know they were meeting with those guys last week. They are planning on replacing some playground equipment as we've started that now. I think that came out of the last buildings and grounds last year, making that a routine item to try and upgrade our playgrounds. So we do have some things that we're working on and have worked on already this year. Which will add up to about $500,000 worth of items that we will have completed out of the entire budget for this year. One of the big ones, Randy, if you scroll down, that the board just recently approved is the turf replacement that we are right now estimating at $375,000. That will, if everything goes well, will be replaced here in the next couple of weeks and paid for out of this year's budget. Capital reserve budget. So that's really kind of the bulk of what makes up that $535,000 that we will be looking at spending out of capital reserve for this year, leaving a balance of $1,147,000 at the end of this year. So.
Well, I mean, this list is improved, and even the way we're presenting it, some of the board members may look into it. Some economists are starting to come forward. Some pretty serious economists, I think, are starting to come forward and projecting there could be deflation in the second quarter of what am I talking about? We're in the fourth quarter of this year. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with these prices going forward. I think we've all been concerned about prices going up, but there's sort of some indication that that inflation will not occur, and that there's some pretty interesting arguments on the deflation side. So we want to pay attention to that relative to this list. So timing is going to be everything. I see, but Jared, thank you. This is great. I see some Tom, you raised your hand, and then we'll go to Tammy Blank, please.
Yeah, Julie, I'm a little concerned. The musical instruments of 100,000. We had talked about replacing the damaged instruments on a rolling basis. I don't see that being done here. I'd certainly like to see that back on the list to accomplish at least some of those getting those damaged instruments replaced. We spent a
Can
lot.
we put that to the next meeting, and Jared can look into it unless you have a quick answer, Jared?
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure that it gets noticed and something happens.
Yeah, I mean, I have some specific questions, but I'll reserve them. But yeah, that's always been a big one for us. But Jared, unless you have a really quick answer to it, can we prepare this in an email and then we'll put it on the next?
I mean, it certainly is on kind of similar to how it is on here on the next year's budget, the 21-22. We can, if we want to treat it similar to playground equipment, where we allocate a certain amount, $25,000 a year to replace equipment or musical instruments, we certainly can do that.
I thought that's what we had talked about doing, Jared. That's why I bring it up.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. And I'm not, one of the faculties actually mentioned something to me about it, Tom. So does anybody have an objection if we let's talk about it at the next meeting if we want to do that going into the next fiscal year? Is that okay with everybody, and they can have a time to think about it a little bit? Because it's important, and we've been talking about those. We've been talking about everything on this list for a long time, but that's a big deal. And we do have a terrific band, and we want to keep them in tip-top shape. Okay, Tammy, you're up.
She left the meeting.
I guess she doesn't want to talk. She probably, she just joined again. Tammy, do you want to speak?
Yeah, sorry, I just had a quick question. Last year when we were talking about playground equipment, we were talking about possibly getting more inclusive playground equipment. Were we able to find any grants or anything for that to help out?
We have not been able to find any grants. I know Mr. Woodring was working with a provider just recently to get some new playground equipment installed this summer. I'm not sure. He was working with the principals to kind of see what their bigger needs were as far as what needed replaced. I'm not sure which pieces of equipment he or they decided on.
Okay, because I think that if we had more inclusive playground equipment, we'd have more kids coming, just more of an influx into the school. Because parents with kids that have disabilities, they look for that in the playground equipment, and that helps them decide where they're going to go. So if and I know this isn't the time to go into it. So if at the Buildings and Recs Committee meeting, maybe we could talk about it. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely, ma'am.
That's a good point. I think at some point to make these decisions, Jared, we'll have to see an inventory, for instance, of the instruments, exactly what the faculty wants to do. Nothing complicated, but just to give us a general idea of where the real need is and how, if we're going to ladder this in, then we would sort of, have a good idea of what has to be done first and what we can defer. I hate to say it, but this is a deferred maintenance list. So,
I'm sure the music department would be more than happy to come present all that to us at some point.
No, or they can hand it in writing. That's what we do with the students, so we can. But what I'd rather do is they hand us something that we can look at for this discussion, and then if we want to have them come in, of course, and then we're ready for the questions instead of starting from scratch. We've had a chance to address the list first, as we all had a few minutes to do with the Eisenhower list tonight. So.
And I can tell you, they had a list put together a couple of years ago, and I'm sure it hasn't changed because we haven't bought anything.
Okay, good.
They already have something together.
Julie, that's what concerns me is that there are instruments that were non-functional that needed to be replaced 2 years ago, and we still haven't done that. So I'd like to get this.
We're gonna do it. Don't worry, we're gonna do it.
Madam Vice President, if I may.
Yes.
This is Rob. Hey, they are actually on the agenda for the academic committee meeting next week to propose a class that they want to start, and I'm sure I could have them bring that information, at least some of the information that you're looking for, to that meeting.
Well, if they could bring it, if we could get a heads up on the exhibits before the night of the meeting. Now, Tom can have a 5-hour meeting if he wants to, but if it comes in front of my committee, not my committee, our committee, and don't get me wrong. If it comes in front of the Audit and Finance Committee, I want to see something in advance so that, because we're always the committee that is on the tight time schedule. Uta, you raised your hand.
I did. I have a similar concern to Tom. We've had this conversation, and I think we need to just figure out a way that conversations that happen in other committees make it to this list, and then like action happens, right? Because we can't all be at every committee meeting. I mean, it may seem like we're able to be at more because we can use technology to do that, but I kind of feel like we keep rehashing some of the same topics when we've already made a decision. And I think that's a really bad practice to get into.
Oh, it is. And we have some money now. So, you're always, I feel like this whole budget is running the hurdles. You're trying to, okay. Somebody put his hand up. Who was that? Terry?
Terry. Yeah. And I agree with what Tom and Uta said. This has been discussed, and I thought we threw out a figure of $25,000 a year or 20, and I think we ought to do that on this 21-22 spreadsheet. Just put in that right column that we're going to spend $20,000 or $25,000 every year for the next several years.
Does anybody have an objection? No, hearing none. Correct. Somebody with a T, who has their hand up? T. Okay, somebody put, Greg Trout? Okay. All right, Jared, you got your marching orders.
20 or 25? What are we here? 20, 20, 25, 22? 25?
Do we have 30? Do we have 35?
Terry, let's go to 25 because they didn't buy a thing in 20.
Okay.
All right, done deal. Okay, can we please go on now to the big enchilada here? That's the Eisenhower. I've got a couple. Can we get the Eisenhower budget up on or not the budget, but this list you got?
The only other thing, ma'am, and certainly we can move on, but that was just the estimate. The proposed capital reserve budget for 21-22 is also on here to review tonight. It may, like I said, we were going to talk about it.
All right, put it out quickly. It's already 6:02. Let's get it a little larger. This didn't change, did it?
Well, there's a couple new items on there.
Right, go over the new items.
This is for 21-22. There is a couple of the newer items are the boiler stack replacement at the senior high. That is really just a chimney for the boilers that has disintegrated and needs replaced on there. There is a 0-turn mower that Mr. Trout would like to get. One of theirs down at the shop must be smoking pretty bad, and they don't believe that they can get it fixed. I have it highlighted on there because what we would like to propose to the board is if you're willing to get the mower, if at all possible, that the board could approve taking that out of the 2021 so that we could order that and get it in as soon as possible. Like most things, mowers right now are hard to come by because of COVID. And if we're going to get any use out of a mower this summer, the sooner we can get it, the sooner that we can get it ordered and get it here. So what we would like to propose is that at the next board meeting, the board gives us approval to take that out of the 2021 budget, if at all possible.
Terry, do you have an objection if it's possible?
No, not. Nope.
So anybody on the Buildings and Grounds Committee okay with that? I mean, I'm, and when it comes to the surplus, I'm always for plowing it back into deferred maintenance. So I'm not going to kid you about that. But I think as much as we can chew off while we have some liquidity, we should. Okay, somebody has her. Cinda?
Okay, so the 0-turn mower is a mower only, correct?
Yes, it would not be for snow removal or anything else, just for mowing around the district. It would be at the maintenance garage and hauled around to all the different schools for mowing.
And it's to replace a 0-turn mower that we already have that's not good.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
sell the old one to offset the cost at all? I know there's a big market in these mowers because I'm trying to buy one.
Yep, we can certainly do that.
Okay, look into that to try to offset that number. I'm surprised at stuff that's for sale right now, if you want to go shopping. Okay, anything else you want to point out? Because total funds available will be 1.3.
And it's
no projected balance.
It'd be about 1.2, but that is even before we would do any type of transfer. So if we did the board, as we discussed, with the budget, if the board does approve a transfer from the general fund this year into capital reserve, it could be even more than that.
Well, that's the decision I think we have to think about between now and the next meeting. Is last year, this year, we transferred in October, correct?
Yes, after we got pretty much the final.
Yeah. Now that was a safe bet, particularly when we were looking at some of the challenges that we were looking at. But I don't know if we're going to feel comfortable enough to transfer at the end of this year or not. I mean, I would certainly like to. I really would. I think it's important that we keep this district running smoothly and on these lists. So Terry, you've raised a hand, please.
Yeah, I just want to plug the East Pike roof again. I know that we pushed that off, but this balance is going down, and that roof's going to cost, the estimate on here is $800,000. So that eats a big part of this balance.
It certainly does, and I agree. I mean, I think if we feel comfortable in another month, depending how these May numbers come in and where we are, I think it should be you should seriously consider, after we hear from Jared, about whether or not you want to, put more into the surplus into the. We can certainly use it. I don't think anybody can argue we can't. It's a matter of getting the priorities straight. So please think about that. Somebody have their hand up? No. Jared,
just to clarify too, man, when I say transfer it as of this year, what we did back in October when we voted to transfer it, we were, October of 20 is certainly in the 2021 school year, but we made that transfer effective June 30th of 2020, which was part of the 19 school year. So once we kind of got the final numbers in for that school year, that's when the board voted to make a transfer in that school year, just effective June 30th. So we can certainly wait till we get the absolute numbers for 2021 in to make a decision on any transfer that you want to do, to make sure the board is entirely comfortable with that and the amount that you want to transfer.
Yeah, and my understanding is if we decided to transfer $250,000 in and we wanted to put another $250,000 in October, we could. There's no rule preventing two transfers.
No, there isn't.
Okay, because this roof, I mean, we don't want to drain it. If we can get the roof done, it seems to me we ought to move along with it. So we may have different needs for a different year. So we may decide we want to do more at the end of by the end of this fiscal year. Okay, anybody else, please speak up. Otherwise, let's go to Eisenhower.
Yep, and we will cover this again in buildings and grounds as well.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, good. I look forward to it. And Jared, I think I'm going to let Terry lead this discussion on this next exhibit you're putting up on the board that we just got from the architects, because I wasn't sure if this meant both wings or one wing or how this. But I think Terry, if you can step in and conduct this discussion, I'd feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, sure. We had quite a bit of detailed discussion the last couple building grounds committee meetings, and we'd asked Bucard Horn to put together a estimate of what a total renovation would cost at Eisenhower, and the estimate that they put together is to be for the entire building. You can walk down through, but the bigger stuff that we had talked about was the doors, interior, exterior, the windows, the framing above the windows, the electrical system. Trying to think if I could bring that up, or if Randy, if you want to bring that estimate up. And
Which one would you like, the renovation work or the A or B?
A. And you can see in their estimate, they did put a 25% contingency in due to, it's a preliminary estimate. There's really not been any design work done yet. So, and then also with COVID and the spike in the material costs and that sort of thing, they felt more comfortable putting a 25% contingency in. Normally they only probably put about 10%. And, the numbers is lower than what I was expecting. We just got this today, so I'm sure some of us are going to look at this and probably have some questions for Buchard Horn on some of the things. So, let's not stamp that $4.4 million into our brains just yet. Because it could, I wouldn't doubt that it's higher than that once we, get into this a little bit further. Tom, go ahead.
Cinda was up before I was.
Go ahead, Cinda.
I'm just to clarify, this is renovation for the whole building, not just the south wing. This is the whole building.
It was to be for the whole building. We can ask Buchard Horn to clarify that.
Well, so then 2 questions. I don't see anything on here about lighting, and maybe I'm just not looking in the right place. And the second thing is, do we have any idea yet how much money we can expect from the insurance company, or will the insurance company not cover any of these renovation type items?
Cinda, the lighting would be covered under the electrical budget on the very last page. They have $723,000 in for electrical, but they did not break that down. So that would be where the lighting would be. And this has made nothing about, there's no discussion about insurance money here. Now, Terry, if I understand this right, and of course we just got this today, there's on the one sheet of paper here, we're at 4.4 million. And then for the various classrooms and office, we're 3.1 million. So we're looking at 7.5 million more or less.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we're clear on that. There's a lot of things on this list here that we probably don't need to deal with, like library shelf bookcases. We already own those, for instance. That's just one example of they've tried to cover the whole waterfront, but there's some things I think we could line out on these. We should be able to pull the 4.4 down. I don't know about the 3.1. They didn't break that out much. Go ahead.
Then we even asked them to put the additional parking in that front where the modulars were and extending that street. I think, again, I just looking at those prices real quick seems a little low, but at least it's in this preliminary estimate. And then, Tom, to answer your question, maybe more on the insurance, I do not have any information on the insurance, and I don't think the administration does yet, but there will be, or I guess Cinda, you had asked, I think, we probably will get some insurance money for like some of the electrical on the west wing. So it could take some of this cost away.
Terry, we said we should get some money for the replacement of the modulars. So there should be a number in there of some kind.
Correct.
Mr. Kerr, now that the board has pretty much gone in the direction of doing a full renovation, my last conversation with the restoration company is that they are now working with the insurance company to go through and start creating what basically an insurance settlement would look like. With the restoration company really at this point not doing any of the work because we've gone in the direction of doing all the work pretty much as a renovation project. So they are working through those numbers right now. And as soon as we have something, we will report that back to the board.
Right. But it should help this estimate.
Absolutely. It would be credited towards this.
Right. Because Buchard Horn didn't take that into account. And Uta, you raised your hand.
I did. I just want to make sure that we're really clear that there are two estimates out there, and one of them includes the classrooms that we lost due to the fire, and talks about office space and those kinds of things. So I think we want to make sure we don't forget about those when we're having a conversation, and making sure that the things that were damaged and therefore need to be replaced actually all show up on the list that the insurance company is using to determine what that compensation is going to be.
Yeah, good point. And Barb, you asked a question in the chat room. It's a link on this agenda, the estimate for the office. And we had seen it last week or the week before, or whenever it was presented to us before. Cindy, raise your hand again.
Yeah, I talked with Jared before the meeting about printing out these estimates, and I got the first one to print okay, but the one that's just the little estimate, that's the opinion of probable construction cost disclaimer for the new office, I cannot get that thing to print in any kind of font size that I can read. Can Jared maybe help me do that later?
I can do that, ma'am, or I can even send it back out as an Excel doc as well.
That'd be super great. Thank you.
So probably, Julia, where we'll go with this is, admin and any board member that has any questions or comments on these estimates, I would say send them to Jared. He'll collect up any comments or questions, and we can ask Buchard Horn to clarify or, add anything that we think's missing from these estimates.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just curious, Terry, if you have any sense, or even Mike Vukovich or anybody, or Randy O'Neill, or not Randy, Rob Heinrich, if we have any sense of when we're going to get some idea of this, what the insurance company's time frame is for offering.
No, Madam Vice President, I do not. I know it's in their hand that we'd hopefully be in the next week or two. Jared, does that sound reasonable based on your follow-up with the insurance company, or is it going to be longer? I know they're working on it, but they didn't give us really a definitive date. But Jared, can you respond?
No, I would say probably a week or two is good. I know from talking to Stefan, the insurance company certainly wants to get this closed sooner than later. So I can follow up with him tomorrow as well to see if he has a better timeline as to when they may make an offer.
Good. Okay. Anything else, Terry? Do you want to make any other comments about this in general? I'm just glad to see it. I'm just really glad. It gives us some idea.
Yeah. And like I said, the number is lower than what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And I don't know if, Tom, you had the same response or.
No, the numbers are always higher than I expect them to be. It seems like an inordinate amount of money to do a one-story elementary school, but there we go.
Never shall the two meet. Okay. Alrighty. So if there's nothing further on this, again, we'll send your emails into Jared, and we'll start, asking questions. I think this is going to move more smoothly if we ask enough questions in advance of committee, so that when we're in committee, we've got boiled down to what we really need to know.
And the last thing, Joey, I'll just say too is because of our discussion tonight and at the building grounds meeting last week, this is going to be a motion on the next board meeting, June 14th, is to move forward with Buchard Horn designing these renovations. So I think what we wanted to maybe do a little bit tonight was to start thinking about how we're going to pay for this.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
Well, but didn't we discuss that, the Buchard Horn, didn't we discuss that in your last meeting, as I remember?
yes.
So when is your next committee meeting relative to the 14th of June? Is it next week?
I'll have to walk away to look at my calendar here.
I thought you had a meeting. I don't know if academics next or buildings and grounds.
No, it's June. It's not till June 21st.
So we're going to vote on it before the next meeting. Is that
correct?
Is everybody comfortable with that, or should we have some sort of a?
We had talked about having a special meeting if we needed to, but what we talked about, we're doing this in steps. We pretty much have consensus to do the office. We have consensus to do the renovations, and then June 21st, we were going to talk about the number of classrooms.
Right. Yeah. But
we wouldn't have to start on designing the classrooms. They could, if we voted June 14th, they could go ahead and start the renovation design. Okay. And then we talk about it on the 21st, the number of classrooms, then the next board meeting vote.
Gary?
Yes.
There's an academic meeting on June 7th, and we could certainly have some of this discussion at that, especially the number of classrooms and things like that.
Well, at least questions. I don't know if you have to have a full presentation, do you? Because we've had that.
No, I think a discussion, we could do a focused discussion on the academic committee to get some of these items knocked off.
Well, I think that was the plan, Tom, because to let Buckhart Horn start the design, we're going to have to come up with what the building layout is.
Yeah. But my point is that the academic meeting's a week before the next board meeting.
Yep, that'll work.
We can answer some of those questions at that meeting.
Right.
You're invited to come.
I'm always there.
Yeah, we'll be there. But my feeling, though, is that the more we can ask questions in advance and get this, because time goes so fast. I don't know, I guess it's because I'm not a kid anymore, but the long summer days don't seem so long anymore. So I think as much as to keep this moving along, I certainly want to see the motion on the 14th, though. I don't think we should delay, because you're right. This is rational to try to move it along.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the thought too, we would use that bond money that was borrowed from Ben Franklin. And then we have a bond coming due, I think, this fall that we talked about.
Correct. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's my thoughts about how to pay for this.
Well, there's always the option, if rates are low, that she can come back and talk to us about the idea of refinancing and putting a little bit more on.
Right. Correct.
I mean, it's not, I mean, we're unlikely to see rates like this again in our lifetime, I hope. But anyway, so it's something to consider.
Yeah, I think Barb may have raised her hand.
Yeah, I think she did too. Barb?
I was just curious on how the motion would be written up, if it'd be just one motion, or if it will be broken down into different pieces. If you're talking, because I was looking at the Ike office cost, if that would be a motion in the renovation, or I'm just curious to know how it would be picked apart.
There's only one architect. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be one motion, Barb, for the office and the renovation.
But what about the classrooms?
Well, we'll have to figure out if we get it figured out at Tom's academic meeting. If we were able to get consensus there at that meeting, we could include that, or we'd have to wait another month on the classrooms.
I think we need firmness on cost on that end of it. So you're looking at probably doing one motion, but you could spread it out if you had to.
Right.
Okay.
Julie.
Yeah. What?
We're going to make a motion to hire the architects, and we can give a range. I think we know what we're going to do for the renovations, or at least we think we were hitting that. We know what we're going to do at the secure entrance, and we have and the only question in my mind is how many classrooms we build. That doesn't have to be decided without input from the architect. So we could do, 4 to 6 classrooms or 2 to 8 classrooms or something like that, and allow some of this to work out over time on what actually fits on that site.
Well, maybe we can see a proposed motion at your meeting. I don't know, but tonight, I don't think we're going to get down to drafting motions, but
No, but I just want to
points well taken.
Yeah, we're just hiring the architect to help us make some decisions first.
Yeah, okay. Right. Okay. No, that's fine. I think we've got a framework here of how we're going to move forward. How the motion is exactly written, I think will be fluid for another week, correct?
Correct.
Correct, Tom?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Anybody else before we move on to the summer camp budget?
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Now, I'll make it brief and quick. We currently gained approval from the board for a budget about $250,000. That was on an estimate with a projection of 200 students. We have now doubled that number. We're over 400. We got about 410 students who are interested in our summer program. And what I'm respectfully asking the board to do is to increase our budget from 250,000 to 300,000. As of yesterday, our budget's around $260,000. So we're not too much over the budget, but we are concerned if numbers continue to rise, as well as the cost of LPNs. As a result of the COVID spikes the past several months, we thought it was important to bring LPNs in case we have to quarantine people with the supervision of certified school nurses. So we think $300,000 gives us an extra buffer if we need to hire additional staff, accommodate for the LPNs and health services that come along, and allow us to really meet the moment as far as the demand with amount of kids. I know I'm asking for money and I hate to do that, but I am completely impressed and proud of the fact that we have this many kids wanting to come to summer school or to summer camp. It's just amazing. I never thought we'd be, you know, we think about it, it's almost basically like the entire Ben Franklin school, right? If you look at numbers.
Mike, it's a testament to the hard work you and your team have done. I mean, I'm just thrilled. I think we have to figure it out. And I think it just really speaks volumes for the district. Thank you. So you were looking for more money. We're used to that. Tammy Blank, you had your hand up.
Yes. Mike, I thought now the grades for the senior high, they don't go out for another 2 weeks after the school lets out, right?
That's correct. And the high school has their own summer school budget. Rob's going to need a little extra money for the mentorships that we previously gained approval for. So that's already been approved. This is mainly for the elementary program. But yes, ma'am, you're correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because I was thinking that if the high school doesn't know for 2 weeks, you're probably going to look at a flood of students at that time.
Yeah, we have a smaller budget set aside already for the summer school funds. If we need to pull over, we're hopeful that, you know, the extra $50,000 will get us where we need to be, and we feel comfortable. The good news with the board, the committee need to just be reminded of is the finances to cover for this is coming from the ESSERS fund. So it is a smart use of the money, and we just would budget for this summer and next summer as well. But
it's an investment. It's not an expense, Mike.
Yeah, well said.
Exactly.
I mean, you have to take a moment and pinch yourself how lucky we are to have that many families who believe in what we're doing and what this extra program and services. And the YMCA was nothing but great to work with. We met on Friday. Jared, myself, and Justin met with them. We're working on a plan there. Rob and his team are getting ready to meet with the teachers to onboard them. So we're going full steam ahead. But again, we were surprised by the turnout, and I had to bring it forward to the committee for consideration.
Yeah, it's terrific. Terrific. It's the best news I've had for a long time. Anybody else have an objection or anything or a comment?
Julie, I do have a comment. Mike's been worried about these numbers increasing, and we've been encouraging to keep taking names and making space. So I'm thrilled that we have this kind of response and that we have the ability to accommodate. So my encouragement to Mike is to keep going, and let's try to end the summer slide back. So thanks a lot, Mike.
Yes, sir.
I heard a youngster ask me if it's true that you got to go fishing every day at Blue Spruce Park. I said, I don't know. Who knew? So we don't want to dispel rumors quite yet. No, all kidding aside, I think it's great. I think it's an investment. So Mike, do what you have to do. I think that's what we're telling you, unless anybody feels differently. And in addition, Tammy, your hand's still up. Are you okay?
I just want to say how proud I am of this school board and this administration to get the school summer school program free for the kids that need it and everything, because this is just awesome. I love this whole process. I love it. That's it.
Thank you. Anything for the good of the order? Oh my goodness, it's 6:29. We're finishing in exactly 60 minutes. Okay, I guess we go into executive session next. Is that the case?
Yes, Madam Vice President, that's correct.
Can you
So
give
we'll
us?
log off this meeting and then use a separate link that I previously provided the board.
Yeah, I have that. Like, can you give us a 3-minute break for a second?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. It was a good meeting. I appreciate everybody's input, as does the whole committee.
Thanks, Joey.
Thank you.